And welcome back to another episode of Hockey Talking. My name is Clay. Thank you for tuning in. We've basically reached the end of training camp, folks, as the Blackhawks have played their annual red-white scrimmage, which is usually played in front of a packed house at the United Center, but this year is just a little bit different. Still at the United Center, just no fans. Definitely a weird sight for sure. Now this year, the white team beats the red team by a final score of 8-2, and hopefully that's some good omens for the start of the season because the Blackhawks will be playing their first 4 games on the road. And of course, they wear their white jerseys on the road. Now, as a fan of both teams in the scrimmage, I am wearing my black jersey because we all know that red and white put together equals pink. But let's ignore color theory here and talk about this scrimmage. Now, first and foremost, as I mentioned, there were no fans in attendance, which was obviously weird. Now, this isn't like brand new. We've seen this in other sports, and we saw this in the playoff bubble in Edmonton. But this is kind of the first time we've seen the United Center look this way, at least for me. I don't watch basketball, so I don't watch the Bulls. I don't know what it looks like for them. But for the Blackhawks, it was kind of weird. And there were some things about the rink aesthetics that made it look weird as well. Now, it should be noted that the Blackhawks' first home game is until the 22nd. Even though the season starts on the 13th, they still have a little bit more time to kind of get the rink set up. One of the big things that you may have noticed or may not have noticed, but there was something kind of like, you're like, what is wrong with this, you know? And that's the fact that there were no ads on the boards at all, like the dasher boards. It was just plain white. And that's weird, especially for the NHL. But those will be up in due time. But it was definitely weird for this. Also, the tarps on the seats, I was a little disappointed with because it was just like black. It was black tarps, and United Center seating is dark red. It would have been nice to have dark red tarps because with the black tarps, it just kind of makes it look like just any other arena out there, like a Brooklyn Islanders type of arena. Like it was kind of off-putting, at least for me, but it's not really that big of a deal. Now, another thing that was kind of weird about this scrimmage is that the camera angle was not at center ice. It was off to the left side, which was kind of disorienting at times as well, at least for me. But those were kind of some things that were a little weird for this scrimmage that hopefully it won't look as weird once the season starts. And then one last aesthetic thing that I noticed during the scrimmage, there were no logos on the helmets, like no Blackhawk logo. It was just blank, which tells me that there's probably going to be a sponsor getting announced shortly, just like a lot of other teams have announced sponsorship ads on their helmets. Blackhawks will probably have one too, which I've already told you plenty of times I'm not a fan of, but I get why they're doing it. I have more of an issue of the fact that it's not going to be just for this year because these things never are. So, yeah. Moving on to the actual scrimmage now. Starting goaltenders were Subban and Delia. Both of them played half the game, the first period and then the first half of the second period. And then Tompkins and Lankinen came in for the second half of the game. The Red Squad in general had more of the veterans on it. Kane, Strome, DeBrincat, Kubalik, Shaw. Defense, Keith, Murphy, Boquist. Basically, veterans, guys who basically already have their roster spots locked up. And that's probably why the white team ended up winning, by a score of 8-2. Just because the white team had, in general, more players who are trying to get onto the roster. They're going to bring that extra intensity. And the veterans, who have a roster spot locked up, even though they're trying, but they're not going to put themselves in harm's way. They're not going to get themselves, to get injured, especially since we're already out, Taves and, Doc. So they're just trying to get kind of ready for the start of the regular season on Wednesday. So they're not quite going 100%. They're still trying, but they're not, they're not at game effort right now. Whereas there's a lot of guys on the white team that were. The Highmore, Kampf, and Carpenter line was absolutely fantastic tonight. Best line of the scrimmage by far. Their chemistry, their hustle, their forecheck, their scoring. I mean, this is exactly the way the Blackhawks are going to need to play this year. They're not going to be able to out-talent anyone. They're going to have to just outwork teams and find secondary scoring. This type of line is exactly what they need. Highmore had 2 goals, could have even had a hat trick maybe, but they're saying he did not tip the puck in from Carlson's shot from the point. Kampf had a goal from a nice little forecheck and feed by Carpenter. I mean, the line was just all over the ice. It was a treat to watch. I thought Ian Mitchell was absolutely fantastic tonight as well. Solid play in the defensive zone, good in the neutral zone, even made some plays in the offensive zone. He didn't get on the scoreboard as well, but pinched, kept some pucks in, created some offense, even joined in some odd man rushes, driving the net. Like he was there. He was making plays there. And as far as I'm concerned, he's got a roster spot locked up, especially if Seabrook and Zadorov are still unfit to play. Ian Mitchell is on the roster, and he's probably playing the first game. And in addition to that, my goodness, is he such a smooth skater. I mean, it's such a stark difference than like watching Adam Boqvist skate, because he just looks like he's laboring the entire time. Ian Mitchell is just so smooth out there. It's a treat to watch. This kid's gonna be good. I thought Kurashev had a pretty good game as well. He scored twice. He looked good in the scrimmage. He's looked good in camp as well. I still feel like he's on the bubble. I don't think he has a roster spot locked up at all, but he's definitely kind of one of those guys that will probably be at least in this taxi squad, and then maybe getting in depending on injuries. But you know, he's a guy who's making the coaches think. That's one thing for sure. In terms of the goaltenders, which is a big question mark heading into the season, still is a question mark, probably will continue to be a question mark, probably the entire season, honestly. But as I mentioned earlier, Subban and Delia got the starts in this one. They both played half the game. Delia gave up 2 goals, one of which was pretty soft. It was a Carlson shot from the point, which looked like Highmore may have redirected. But other than that, there was no traffic, and the puck didn't change much at all if it was redirected, which they're saying it wasn't, which is why Highmore didn't have a hat trick in this game. Delia probably should have saved that one. Subban looked pretty good, pretty solid. He did give up a goal, which was due to him kind of struggling to catch pucks tonight, which got that one rebound that Peary picked up and put in. So, you know, I would say both guys looked solid for the most part, but there's, you know, they're no Corey Crawford, they're no, you know, Robin Leonard. They didn't look terrible, but, you know, we'll see. And then at the halfway mark, Tompkins and Lankinen come in. Tompkins gives up 6 goals, which, I mean, he's not going to be on the roster. Nobody was expecting him to be on the roster. He's going to be down in Rockford when their season starts in February. Lankinen looked pretty darn good to me. He just had 1 goal against him, which was just a great feed from Patrick Kane to DeBrincat on the back post and basically a tap in. But other than that, Lankinen looked pretty good. The Blackhawks need to carry 3 goaltenders, so we might see the Blackhawks just go with kind of the hot hand this year. It may be like Subban starting, and if he struggles, then they'll move to Delia, and then if he struggles, maybe Lankinen gets a shot, and we'll just kind of go from there, see who has the hot hand, and go from there. Because we're not going to have emergency goaltenders this year. We're not going to have a Scott Foster situation. That's why teams are going to be, you know, carrying 3 goaltenders. So I would expect the Blackhawks to essentially use all 3 goaltenders, at least from my perspective. But who knows? Maybe the coaches have a different strategy coming up. Maybe they see something more that I don't. Maybe they have more of confidence in 1 or 2 of these goaltenders than another. Who knows? And for all of you old school fans, we got to see a fight as well, which is something you really don't want to see in an intra-squad scrimmage, but we saw one. Nick Seeler versus Reese Johnson, and, well, it was pretty much a mismatch. Nick Seeler obviously is going to win that one, and he dominated. But yeah, we saw a fight, which was weird. Speaking of putting on a show, Patrick Kane put on a little bit of a show at the end of the scrimmage. Now, the Strome, Kane, and DeBrincat line really didn't create too much offense. They created a little bit, but you could tell, like, they got the roster spots locked up. They're not going 100% out there. But Kane, last shift, he put it into another gear and showed why he's, you know, Patrick Kane. It would have been a lot of fun to witness the fans reacting to that if, you know, there were fans in attendance. But it was still fun to see from the view of your television screen. In terms of special teams, the red team went 0 for 4 on the power play, which is a little concerning because, as Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat and Dylan Strome and Dominic Kubalik. But as I mentioned, red team wasn't quite going, 100%, but you'd like to see, them score a goal. However, with that said, the white team did have a good chunk of our actual penalty killers on that team in terms of Carpenter and Highmore and Walmark and Janmark and Kampf. It looks like our penalty kill will be pretty decent, which is nice. But if the Blackhawks are going to be respectable this year, the power play is going to have to be respectable too. Hopefully this scrimmage is a little bit of an anomaly. Hopefully they don't go 0 for 4 every game, which they won't, but hopefully it's better than it was, last year for a good chunk of the year at least. So there's your red-white scrimmage. White team wins 8-2. And now management and the coaches have some decisions to make. The first game is on Wednesday, and it's, an away game in Florida, which means the team is going to be leaving on Tuesday. So this roster is pretty much going to need to be set sometime on Monday because the Blackhawks will then do a practice Tuesday morning and then leave for their, road trip. So we should know pretty soon who makes the team right out of camp here or who doesn't. It's a little bit tough this year because training camp was only a week. There's no preseason games. We just have this week training camp and this red-white scrimmage to really go after. But thankfully there is kind of a taxi squad, and so you can kind of try some players out if you want to during the first couple games. And honestly, every team is going through this situation. It could be kind of sloppy for the first part of the season. It'll be interesting. Now, before I sign off, let's take a Twitter question. Keegan asks, where's Zadorov? That's a good question. I'm going to guess somewhere close to Carmen Sandiego. But in reality, he's got the unfit to participate status, which is the same status that Brent Seabrook has and Evan Barrett has. It's just a league-wide generic status that is being used prior to the regular season. So we don't know what the deal is with him, whether it be COVID related or maybe it's injury related. We don't know. Hopefully we'll know soon. Hopefully once the regular season starts, we'll get more information on what is up with these players if they're not in the lineup before then. In terms of Soderberg, he is not unfit to participate, but he's still dealing with immigration issues, so he hasn't gotten over from Sweden yet. Or if he has gotten over, he hasn't quarantined enough yet. I don't really exactly know, but it would be nice to have him in the lineup at some point too. Hopefully he doesn't miss a whole lot of regular season action because our lineup is not that great to begin with. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you got something out of it. Like, share, and subscribe if you did. But most importantly, stay safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you next time.